Hey guys, Julie here. Wanted to jump on here and do a little painting with you today. So this is a design that I have in two different sizes. And so it's Simply Blessed. And this is a 10 by 20 canvas. And then this is a 16 by 20. So 16 by 20 and 10 by 20. And I have both of these templates available. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to paint this. I don't use chip brushes too often. A chip brush is just these little guys that you can get pretty inexpensive at almost anywhere. Rhonda, hello, how are you today? I actually found a really good deal on these at Harbor Freight. So if you have a Harbor Freight nearby, and you do a lot of painting, these are great. Hello, Terry. So once again, this is a 16 by 20 canvas, and I have the tracer available in both sizes. Good morning, Melissa. How are you doing? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the background, and I'm going to let you know that I've already pre-traced out the canvas, and I went over the outline in a permanent marker, a Sharpie, and I'm going to show you that a little bit later. I found a new Sharpie, and it is awesome, so I wanted to share with you guys. But once again, I've already put the outline on here with permanent marker. And now I'm coming in with this chip brush, and I'm just going side to side, back and forth, and applying a thin layer. Good morning, Patty. How are you today? The trick with this is when you have the outline already on there with a permanent marker, if you come in with the thin enough layer of paint, you'll still be able to see the writing through the paint, and then you can go back over it, and it'll just look amazing like you did it the first time. Nobody ever needs to know. But I want this to kind of look a little bit like just distressed wood. This was my original, and you can see I added some gold and some other funky stuff on top. But I like the look of kind of that like rustic distressed look. Patty says, let's see how the pen works. That's going to be my very, very last trick at the very, very end, but I will definitely show you how to do that. This is, oh, Patty says, love your hat. Thank you, my friend. You know, the funny thing with hats is I just started wearing hats not too long ago. You know, I've always loved baseball hats, and just they're so easy. And then I did a paint party at a friend's clothing boutique, and she had this really, really cute hat. And I'm like, I like hats, but I don't know like if I could pull the hat off, you know. I don't know. I like to like, I don't know. I think I'm fashionable, but I'm really not. I like to try stuff, but I'm like, it looks better on other people. So anyways, long story short, she had this really cute hat in her shop, and she gave me a really good deal. And I'm like, why not? So I bought the hat, and I came home, and I told my husband, I'm like, okay, I kind of did the thing. I bought a hat, and I put it on, and he's like, oh, you look kind of cute in that. And I'm like, okay. And within like 3 weeks, I had ordered 4 more. So if my husband tells me I look cute, I'm like, all right, then I'm going to get a whole bunch of that. So I have probably like 4 or 5 hats now. So it's kind of funny because I love them too. And I'm like, one's good, 5's even better. So anyways, let me move this up a little bit so you guys can see. But once again, I'm just going back and forth with a real thin layer of paint. And I'm not too worried about covering up the entire canvas because like I said, I want it to kind of look like distressed wood. Painting a little bit close to the outline of the petals, but I'm not that concerned about that quite yet. Just coming in here pretty quickly to paint the bottom portion. If you guys are interested in this tutorial, I will put it all together, and I have the tracers, the supply list, the steps. And so if you want to paint this at home, just type in Simply Blessed or tutorial, and I'll get you that information. So I'm just going back and forth. My paint is still wet. It hasn't dried yet. And so I'm going to blend in some areas of white. So I'm just taking my brush. It still is dirty. Guys, don't make fun of my plate. I reuse these again and again, so they're kind of gross. But I just take my brush and I dip it in a little bit of white paint. And then I come in here and I just pick a few spots to go back and forth. But once again, I want to make sure that this paint layer is a little on the thin side, because if you paint it too thick, then you won't have that Sharpie come through. And that's kind of one of the main points, is to go back over the writing. So I just want to make sure this layer is thin. It will come through a little bit darker as it dries. But now I'm just going to jump in and use a smaller brush and paint in some of these little detail areas. So this is about a 1/2 inch flat brush, so it's kind of square shaped, but you can use any detail brush just to come in between the petals where it's a little more detailed and just come in and paint that area. All right. So once again, I have the tracers for both sized canvases. This is a 16 by 20. I think I actually even shrunk it down to a 11 by 14. So if you wanted to paint this even in a smaller size, you can. And then I have this one as well. This is a 10 by 20. So this is more rectangular. And I just loved both designs. So one has the sunflower at the top. One has the sunflower to the side. So I have all 3 of those tracers for you guys. All right, just coming in and painting around the petals. I'm not that concerned because I'm going to go through and do an outline at the end anyways. So we're just kind of coming in here. Just think of this like a big, huge, like coloring book. Joyce says, simply blessed. Thanks. Cute hat. You got it, guys. Once I'm done with this and I have all the tutorial put together, I'll send you guys a link. I'm going to do both. Oh, actually, so all 3 tracers, the video, the supply list, and the steps for $10. So I'll have that all together. And if you guys want, you'll have all those goodies you can download. And I'll show you how to put the tracer on. It's pretty simple. But anyway, so I'm just coming in here and then I'm picking once again a few places. See how this starts to dry? See how that's already starting to come through a little bit more? Main thing is just to make sure that your layer's on the thin side. And then come back in and just streak in a little bit of white wherever you want. I taught this as an in-person paint party early this week. And some of the ladies, they changed up the colors. One lady did like a real pretty, almost like a Merlot kind of burgundy color was real pretty. Another lady did like a army green. And then her sunflowers, she did, have you ever seen those sunflowers? They're almost like purple or like red. So she did it kind of in that color scheme and it looked really, really awesome. Patty said, oh, you froze and I'm back. Okay, let me know if there's any more kind of reception issues. See, ladies, I love hats, but then you get this like weird piece of hair that doesn't want to do anything. So we'll adjust it and keep going. Let me know if there's any more connectivity issues. All right, so once again, this is just kind of up to you how much of this white you want to kind of streak through. You don't even have to do that at all. Okay, so as this part dries, I'm going to come up here and start painting the sunflower. Let me clean up my brush. How many of you guys used to watch, or maybe you still do watch Bob Ross? Remember when he used to clean off his paintbrush? I think that was my favorite part of watching his show. It was so funny. So my brush cleaning isn't as entertaining, but I'm going to come in here and now start painting my sunflower petals. Now these are going to be painted in yellow and then I'm going to streak in a little bit of orange. But I mean, honestly, you can make this a daisy. You can make this, like I said, I know that sunflowers come in all different colors, not just yellow. I'm just going to come in and add a nice generous layer of yellow paint to my petals, and then I'm going to blend in a little bit of orange. So if you've ever painted with acrylic paint, or if you've ever seen me paint, you've probably heard me say about 1,000 times, acrylic paint loves to blend when it's wet, and it will, if you want to paint on top of something, then that base layer needs to be dry. So I am very much wanting to blend, like when I blended the green or the teal and the white, I had to make sure both of those colors were, paint colors were wet in order for them to blend. And the same is going to be true for these sunflower petals. If I want to blend in a little bit of orange, I need to make sure that my yellow paint is still wet. So let's say you're painting this and it's really hot outside, it's really dry. Your paint's going to dry pretty quickly versus if it's raining. So if your paint has started to dry, you can always go back and add some more. So let's say if I painted all of these petals yellow, and by the time I come back to this first one to start blending in some orange, You can always go back and add another layer on top if you want it to blend. So just be mindful as you're going through. If you are wanting to paint something and have another color kind of blend into it, you're going to want to make sure both of those colors are wet. So all that to say, as I'm painting this yellow, I'm making sure to kind of have it on there kind of thick and goopy. Not a real professional artistic term, but the easiest way to describe thick and goopy. How do you apply your paint? Thick and goopy. Just kidding. So I'm coming in here and just painting in the petals, and I'm still using this kind of 1/2 inch flat brush. But at this point, it doesn't really matter. Just use whatever brush is most comfortable in your hand. Sometimes in these smaller areas, it's easier to use a smaller, more like detailed brush. And in the big areas, you can just use a big brush if you're just smearing on paint. So like down here where I want it to be real streaky, I used the bigger chip brush. Up in the petals where the points of the petals are a little more detailed, I'm using a smaller brush. So once again, I have my big, thick, goopy layer of paint on here. And so what I'm going to do is just like we did with the white paint down in the teal, I'm going to take that same brush, pick up a little bit of orange paint, and then I'm going to come in here and kind of streak in some of this orange. Now you'll notice I might just kind of run my brush back and forth once or twice. I want that streak to show. If I wanted the orange and the yellow to blend completely, I would just run my brush back and forth until those colors blend. So once again, acrylic paint loves to blend when it's wet. So I need to make sure my yellow is wet before I try and streak in some orange. And then the more I run my brush back and forth through those two colors, the more it's going to blend. And since I don't want it to blend a lot, I really want that variegation and those streaks to show. I'm just running my brush back and forth a couple of times. See? Not too hard. I'm going to do up here. And I'm kind of following the shape of the petals. Since those petals are kind of shaped like an almond or like a football shape, I'm just kind of following the shape of the petals. I'm just kind of dragging my brush once or twice to get that blended look. And once again, this is whatever you want to paint it. So if you want to make this a daisy and paint it, purple and pink, you do you. I'll just show you the technique. You don't have to paint it exactly like I do. I usually find like half the people want to paint it exactly like I do. And then the other half, they're like, well, I'm going to kind of do my own thing anyways. So whatever you want to do. I got a little bit of that teal color in there. So I'm just going to kind of go over with some more orange and cover that up a little bit. So that is my middle layer. And now I'm going to do the center of the sunflower. And once again, remember how I said as it dries, that writing will come through. And you just want it to come through enough to where you can go back over the outline and see it again. Okay, so now I'm going to do the center of my flower. And you know how the center of the sunflower has all the sunflower seeds, how it's kind of, there's all kinds of texture. So once again, I'm going to go back to a clean chip brush, but you can also use a small round brush. Let me grab one just so you guys can see the two. I'll be right back. Okay, so when I say a round brush, see how those bristles are kind of rounded at the end? That's all I'm talking about. And when I use this brush, I call it the Smooshy Technique. I'm literally just smushing the brush into the canvas. So you can do that, but you can also use a chip brush. So I'm just going to get a little bit of brown paint. I'll show you what I'm doing. I'm just kind of smushing and tapping my brush into the plate. And then I'm going to come in and just start. Oh, I'm going to shake the camera. Sorry, guys. But you get all that texture. Actually, I'll use the smaller brush because it'll be less bouncy. But same idea. Just coming in and smushing my brush on the canvas. So that way, the main thing you're looking for in this step is you want a lot of that texture. You want that texture to come up. because like I said, the center of the sunflower has all those sunflower seeds. And so you want there to be texture. And by smushing your brush into the canvas, you see that texture. So here, I'll hold this up so you guys can see it a little bit better up close. See how you get all that smushy, smushy texture? Not a real artistic term, but just the easiest way for me to describe what I'm trying to get at. So we call it the smooshy technique. All right, just coming in to get that brown paint on there. And then I may have to blow dry this. So I'll tell you to turn your volume down, or if you're watching the replay, you could fast forward for a few minutes. When you're painting this, you probably won't be going as fast as I am. I've only been painting for about 15 minutes. And I already have the whole canvas covered. All right. But you can also, like I said, you can also use a chip brush and get that same texture. I just didn't want to bounce the whole table. So, okay, guys, I'm going to blow dry this. Plug your ears, turn down your volume just for a few minutes. And then once this is dry, we'll do the lettering and then do some like fun little final details. All right, plug your ears. Okay, you can come back now if you're if you have me muted. Let me move my blow dryer. Okay, this is the pen I wanted to show you. Now it is a, let me see if you can see that. See, it's a Sharpie and it's called a brush tip pen. And all that means is, see how the end of that looks like a paintbrush, how it's kind of tapered. Now I got these at Michael's. You can get them online. I'm not sure where else they're available, but look for the brush tip Sharpie. That's the one that I used for this. And as long as your paint is dry, which all this area down here is, I can start to go over and it just flows so smoothly. I just go over the wording, and then I'll show you how to kind of make it look a little bit fancier once you have the lettering done. And granted, I've done this a ton. We had 25 painters at my paint party, so I had to trace out 25 of these. Plus, I helped a ton of them do it at the end. So I've probably gone over this exact lettering maybe 30-ish times. So I have a little bit of muscle memory, but you can just come in here. You can still see the outline through the paint, and you just go over it like that. So pretty quick, pretty simple. Sharpie brush tip pens. Yes, Patty, they are great. I love them. Right there. Oops. There we go. Sharpie brush tipped pen. I found these at Michael's, and I'm sure like everything in the world, you can get it on Amazon too. So anyways, coming in here. So when it comes to lettering, maybe you know this little trick or not, but anytime you have your lettering, they call it the downstroke. And all that means is anytime your paintbrush, your pen comes down, so like with this S, you would come up, and then as it kind of arcs over, you're always going to want to make the downstroke thicker. So this part of the S where my pen is coming down, I'm just going to gradually kind of bulk them up a little bit, beef him up a little bit, him or her, and make that line just a little bit thicker. So see, it starts off thin, comes up, and then as this line tapers down, you just gradually make him a little on the chunky side. And then as my brush comes down and then starts to go back up, then I keep it thin. So that's a trick. If you have any kind of like cursive or lettering that you just want to make it look a little fancier, a little prettier, all you need to do is whenever your pen or your brush comes down, make that line a little bit thicker. So that's my trick. All right, so same thing with this letter I, this part that's coming down. I'm just going to make it a little bit thicker. The end that comes up is thin, then fat, then thin, then fat, then thin, then fat, thin. You know it. Say it with me. Fat, thin, fat. This part right here, beef it up a little bit. And sometimes I'll just go over the line just so that way it's a fluid motion. But see how that just makes it just a little fancy. It's not like calligraphy or anything, you know, real crazy, but it just adds a little. Same thing with this Y, this big long tail coming down. And then just kind of taper that line in. So whether you're doing it with a pen or with a paintbrush, just remember that anytime your pen or your paintbrush kind of comes down, just make that line a little bit on the thicker side. Like I said, you can always come back and just clean up some of those lines. So that is my big fancy trick with my pen. So I'm going to come in here, and then this dries pretty quickly, but still, because I'm right-handed and I'm going over, or if you're left-handed, you know the struggle is real. Just be careful that you don't drag your hand over that marker when it's still wet, but it dries so quickly. Now, can you use a paintbrush and paint? Yes, you can. This is just a little trick to make it easier. Life is hard enough as it is. If we can find ways to make it simpler, by golly, we're going to do it. So, funny little story. Random story brought to you by Julie. I love audiobooks. I joke, I'm like, does anybody actually read books nowadays? Like, who reads? You know, I just listen to audiobooks. And so I found a New Testament. It's not the whole Bible, but it's the New Testament. And it's read by Johnny Cash. How cool is that? Like, if you're going to listen to the Bible, you might as well have Johnny Cash read it to you. You know, so this Simply Blessed reminded me of that. You know, if you're going to be blessed, be simply blessed, you can make it into a pretty sign. All right, so I'm coming over and going over these lines that kind of make it look like the slats of a board. And I'm going to do the outline of the petals with the same brush, but my paint is still a little bit wet. So before I do the outline around the petals with the same brush, I'm going to let that dry. And if you don't like this little extra detail down here, you don't have to add it in. I just thought it added a little extra pretty detail. And you can change the word up too. When I did the paint party, it was so cute. A mother and daughter painted, and the daughter had her say simply beautiful. And I'm like, isn't that precious? Patty says, you love audiobooks. If you know of any good audiobooks that you recommend, let me know. I love books, period. Mainly, like, I'm not a real big one in for like romance novels, but almost any other genre I love. So if you guys have any good book recommendations, please send them my way. A good one that I just listened to that was kind of funny is the Matthew McConaughey. He has an audio, well, it's a regular book too, but it's called Green Light. Oh my gosh, it's so funny. And you got to be a Matthew McConaughey fan, but he's a very quirky person. He's somebody that it would be fun to get to know. Patty says the curly, that's cute. The curly at the bottom. Well, thank you. I like it. But I always like to give people the option, you know, Just because it's on the original design doesn't mean that that's how you have to paint it. All right, almost done with these. All right, perfect. And then what I did that I thought was cute, which once again, you don't have to, is I like to take my paintbrush. You can see I've already done this trick before. Dip my paintbrush in a little bit of white, and then I just did a little dot on here, which once again, not a have to, but just a cute little extra detail. All right. And then one other thing you can do is, let me see if we can tilt this without knocking everything down. If you want to add just a little extra something to your lettering, what you can do is it's kind of like a shadow, but it's not really. So like, let's say if the light was shining from the top, I'm just going to come in and I'm not going to outline or underline the entire letter, but just let's say if there was a shadow, wherever that shadow would be cast. And I mean, I'm using white, so it's definitely not a shadow. But this is just a little fun extra way if you want to add even more detailing to your lettering. You could come in and just add this extra little, like I said, you're not completely outlining the entire word or letter, but you're just adding this extra little line. See how cute that looks? And so, like I said, I'm just pretending like, let's say there's a light shining from the top. So let's say this would be where the shadow would be. So you don't have to be like a master, you know, calligrapher or whatever to have cute little flares, little extra details. And I'm just using a little tiny detail brush to add this extra little line. And I'm just going to do it to this simply. I'm not going to add it to the blessed part. Patty says the white looks really good on the lettering. Well, thank you, my friend. And you know what? If you add it and you don't like it, guess what? Use a little black paint or your pen and go back over it and cover it up. Nobody will know. You know, people get so concerned about like, oh, it's got to be perfect the first time. You know, art is pretty forgiving. Some forms of art, I should say, not all. And if you mess it up, it's pretty easy to fix. That's kind of one of my jokes at my paint parties. I'm like, no matter how bad you think you're going to mess something up, I've probably seen and fixed worse. So just have fun with it. If you don't like it, paint on top of it. All right, almost done with this last little detail. Once again, just kind of pretending that there's a light shining from the top. Where would it cast a shadow? And just going in and adding a little white line. I mean, you could do this with any color, gold, silver. I'm going to add some gold at the very end. All right. See how pretty that is? Oops, let me move it up. See how pretty that is? And not too hard. All right, so I'm going to go back to my brush tipped Sharpie. And this paint's almost dry. It may, there's a couple spots it may not go over. The main trick with these using a permanent marker, whether it's a Sharpie or any other marker, is just making sure your paint is dry. Because if not, it just kind of like smears the paint more than anything. I might need to zap this with my blow dryer again. Okay, guys, give me, actually, you know what? I'll let it air dry. And what I'll do is I'll come in and start adding some fun white details to the flower. We'll do that while the yellow and orange and brown are drying. So I'm just going to come in and use one of my square brushes. So once again, this is a flat square brush. And the side I'm going to be using, I jokingly call it kind of the skinny edge. So if I drag my paint this way, I would get a fat line. But if I drag my brush this way, I can get a very skinny line. Now you can do the same step with a detail brush. I'm just lazy and I hate dipping my brush back and forth in between the paint. And so by doing it this way, This brush will hold more paint than a little detail brush. So I can come in and paint, apply more paint in one swoop than if I did with a bunch. Okay, that's still too wet. So I'm going to come in and use that same stamping technique and just add 3 little dots and clusters. Just once again to kind of add to the effect of all that texture in the center of the sunflower. And once again, these are just suggestions. When you paint this, you do not have to paint it the same way that I am. I like to give you guys like inspiration, and you have way better ideas than I do anyway. So coming in, just adding a few dots here and there. Okay, my yellow and orange is still wet. I'm going to have to blow dry it, guys. Sorry. Plug your ears for just like another couple of minutes. I figured out that I could mute it like 2 seconds before I was done blow drying. So sorry about that. Okay, so now this is nice and dry. Remember how I said to make sure it's nice and thick and gloppy? Well, kind of bit me in the rear because then I needed it to be dry. But once again, this probably, you probably won't paint as fast as I do. So yours will probably dry naturally faster. So once again, I'm using that same brush tipped marker, Sharpie. And like I said, I like it because it just flows real smoothly, but it also mimics the paintbrush. And so it has that same kind of painterly feel to the line, which sounds kind of weird, but you know what I mean. Sometimes I describe things in weird ways. I busted these markers out at the paint party, and I thought that painters might be a little, I don't want to say uncomfortable with them, but because it does mimic a paintbrush, it, you control it the same way you would a paintbrush, and I wasn't sure if people would be comfortable with that, but man, my painters loved them, so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start recommending them then. But you can see just how easily that line flows. And I just went back and re-outlined my petals. And then if you want, I kind of just come around the center area and just do like squiggly lines. Once again, just kind of mimicking that texture. Patty says, when your painting is done, do you attach any picture hangers, sawtooth hangers? Okay, so when it comes to hanging, the reason why I love these is because they have that wood frame and they automatically have a ledge. So I am lazy and I usually just hang them. I usually just use like push pins that kind of have the little tail that hangs out, and I just hang them on that. But you can definitely, some art shows that I have entered my artwork into, they require that you have a wire on the back of your canvases. And also how you mentioned the sawtooth hangers, those are great. I have a ton of those that I use for like my art kits and some of my other wood projects. And all you have to do is hammer them in, and they're great. So Patty, if you have any questions on sawtooth hangers or doing a wire on your painting, I can do a short little tutorial. It's not hard. It's actually pretty easy. So let me know if you want more information. but I don't know if that answers your question. Okay, so I'm going to come in here now that it's dry, and I'll show you what I do with the white. So this is kind of fun. So what I'll do is I'll kind of come in and do a line. Can you guys see that at all? I know sometimes white on top of yellow, you can't really see, but I'll kind of add some lines, and then in between the lines, I'll add a few dots. So like I'll do line, dot, dot, line, dot, 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 line, dot, 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 or something like that. And see how that just those cute little extra details, the couple of dots in the sunflower, and then this kind of line, dot, dot pattern in the petals. Just looks really, really cute. So a couple different options on ways to paint these. So see how that just looks really cute? All right. Another thing you can do is, let me grab a palette knife, because these are kind of fun to use as well. If I can find them, dang it. I cleaned my art room and now I can't find anything. One quick second. Okay, so this is a palette knife. You'll see this is a plastic one. They do have metal ones as well. You can get these little suckers anywhere. Even Dollar Tree sometimes has these. But what I'd like to do with these, let me get a little bit of gold paint. I'll show you on this painting so you can kind of see with both. So see how there's these big chunky lines. You'll see the big white chunky line and the big gold chunky lines. What I do is I take my palette knife, and so what I'll do is, what we're looking at is this puddle right here, gold, is I kind of dip the back in some paint. So see how the gold's on the back, and then I kind of wipe it off on the side of the plate. So tap, 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 wipe. So you just kind of have that on there. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I kind of scrape it. See how you can kind of come in and scrape in a little bit of that on there? This is so fun to do. And you can start off and add as little or as much as you want. So if you like a little more simplistic look, you don't have to add that. But if you want like a real chunky, distressed kind of like barnwood look, you can also do that. And something else that's kind of fun to do is to come in with a little bit of gold paint. And like I said, you can also do this with silver or any metallic that you want. I just love gold in sunflowers. And you can kind of come in and add some gold touches into your petals as well. I don't know if the gold's going to show up real bright. Let me add some, and then I'll maybe move the canvas around. I don't know. See that gold kind of shimmery on the petals? And so that's a fun little extra. You guys know me. I love my metallic paint and just that extra little pop that it adds. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up these last couple of petals with kind of my dot, dot. It's almost like Morse code. Boop, 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 boop. Just kidding. I won't do that, I promise. I'll stop. But you can just add these cute little details. Sometimes it's just those little fun additions that really make a painting super cute. So I'm just kind of coming in and adding these kind of like long dashes with a gap between them, and then I can come back in with my paintbrush handle dipped in a little white paint. And I usually do like clusters of 2 to 3 dots. Looks kind of cute. Fun little details. And like I said, you don't have to add these, but I want to give you guys lots of options. Maybe like one there. Do 1, 2, 3. And then we'll do, you can do, maybe we'll do 4 up here. But guys, how cute. And that didn't take too long. Less than half an hour maybe. Let me add a little bit of gold back into some of these petals. And I mean, you can add gold wherever you want. You can add whatever color you want, but I like to add just a little bit in the petals. Not so much to where it's like in your face, but just kind of a little subtle hint. So that way, like, let's say if you have this hanging on a wall and the sunlight just catches it right. See how cute that looks with the gold? All right, guys. Well, I am going to call this done. Once again, if you want the tutorial, I have the tracer for this is a 16 by 20 canvas. And then this size is a 10 by 20. So it's just a little different layout. Same idea. An 11 by 14. And then I'll have the video, the steps and the instructions and for about $10. Just text in there, Simply Blessed or tutorial or whatever, or I'm interested, whatever. But I'll go in and send in the link once I have that, guys, all together. So I hope you're having a great, what is today? Friday? Oh my gosh, the week is gone. Where has the week gone? I don't know. But anyways, I hope you guys love this. And I have some extra fun stuff. I may jump on here again tomorrow. If you guys have seen those wooden sleds that I have, those 18-inch wooden sleds are super cute. Somebody wants a gnome. So I'm going to do a kind of wintry Christmas gnome wood sled. So if you guys want to see that, jump on here. Like I said, I'll be on here tomorrow. Hope you have a great Friday. Hope you have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.